The training arena was buzzing with excitement as cadets from different species gathered to watch a rare event. Today, the Selgarian Empire's best warrior, known for his unmatched strength and combat skills, had challenged the human cadets. The alien bully, named Vrak, was tall, with sharp features and thick, muscular arms that could crush boulders. He wore dark, heavy armor that seemed to add to his menacing appearance. His eyes glinted with arrogance as he looked down at the group of young human soldiers standing nearby. "Look at these weak humans," Vrak scoffed loudly, his voice echoing across the arena. "They don't belong in a real fight. They can't even stand up to a beginner like me." He waved his hand dismissively, as if they were nothing more than insects. His laughter filled the air, and many of the cadets shifted uncomfortably. They were used to being made fun of by stronger species, but this was different. Vrak was one of the best fighters in the galaxy, and everyone knew it. Alex, a young human cadet, stood at the back of the group. He had heard these insults before. Since humans had joined the Galactic Alliance, they had often been underestimated by other species. But Alex wasn't like the others. He had trained harder, focused more, and always kept a cool head. He had spent months preparing for moments like this. He wasn't going to let Vrak's insults slide. Today, he would show the galaxy that humans could be just as powerful, just as capable, as any alien species. "Who's the bravest among you?" Vrak bellowed, his voice cutting through the tension. "Who dares to step up and face me?" He stepped forward, his massive boots stomping on the ground with a loud thud. "I'll show you what true strength is." Alex's heart pounded, but he didn't hesitate. He stepped forward from the group, keeping his head high. His fellow cadets glanced at him nervously, unsure of what he was about to do. Could a human really fight an alien like Vrak? "Are you sure about this, Alex?" whispered one of the cadets, his voice trembling. "Vrak is a monster. He's crushed fighters from all over the galaxy. You can't win." But Alex didn't answer. His eyes were locked on Vrak, his mind clear. He had trained for moments like this. He had studied everything about the Selgarian fighting style, the alien's weaknesses, and his strengths. The others didn't understand, but Alex was ready to prove them wrong. Vrak raised an eyebrow, amused. "You're the one who wants to die first, huh?" he mocked. "Come on, little human, step into the arena and face me." With no fear in his heart, Alex walked into the center of the arena. The crowd quieted down, watching with eager anticipation. Alex had faced tough opponents before, but this was different. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for the entire human race. The other cadets, who had never seen a human fight at this level, were watching him closely, hoping for something they couldn't even describe. Vrak stretched his arms, clearly enjoying the attention he was getting. "This will be quick," he grinned. "I'll show all of you how weak humans really are." He cracked his knuckles, and the ground seemed to shake beneath his feet as he prepared to fight. Alex didn't respond to the taunts. He was focused, his breathing steady. He knew that in order to beat Vrak, he needed to be faster, smarter, and more strategic. Strength wouldn't win this fight for him. The arena was filled with a strange silence now, as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath. Vrak lunged first, his huge fists flying toward Alex's head. Alex sidestepped with ease, just barely avoiding the blow. The crowd gasped. Vrak was fast, but Alex was faster. He ducked under the next punch and launched a quick jab to the alien's ribs. Vrak staggered for a moment, surprised. The human had actually landed a hit. "Not bad," Vrak growled, rubbing his side. "But you'll need more than that to hurt me." But Alex wasn't done. He had seen the opening. Vrak had exposed his side. Alex's heart raced, but his mind stayed calm. He had trained for this. With a swift move, he swept his leg out, knocking the alien's feet out from under him. Vrak fell backward, hitting the ground with a thud. For a moment, everything was still. The crowd stared in disbelief. Vrak quickly pushed himself back up, his anger growing. You think you've won. This fight is far from over, human. Alex stayed quiet, but his eyes were sharp. He wasn't afraid. He had proven something already. The Telgarian warrior was beginning to realize that this human was more dangerous than he had thought. The match had only just begun, and Vrak was starting to understand that he had underestimated Alex. The challenge had been made, but what neither Vrak nor the crowd knew was that Alex was about to show them the true power of a human cadet. The atmosphere in the arena was thick with tension. The crowd was still buzzing, waiting for the fight to begin. Alex stood across from Vrak, feeling the weight of the moment. His heart raced, but his mind was calm. He had trained for years, preparing for a battle like this. Now, it was time to prove that humans were not weak, that they could stand up to the might of any species in the galaxy. Vrak, on the other hand, was brimming with confidence. His huge frame towered over Alex. With every step he took, the ground beneath him seemed to shake. The alien's armor gleamed under the bright lights, adding to his intimidating presence. His cold, dark eyes locked onto Alex, and a smug grin spread across his face. You ready, human? Vrak growled, cracking his knuckles. This will be over in seconds. Alex didn't say a word. He just nodded and took a deep breath. He focused on his training, his footwork, his breathing, the strategies he had drilled into his body. He couldn't let his nerves take over. He had to stay in control. The match began with a loud gong, signaling that the fight was underway. Vrak wasted no time. With a roar, he charged at Alex, swinging his massive fists in wide arcs. Alex could see the power in each punch, but he also saw the openings, the small moments where Vrak would overextend himself. The bully's movements were powerful, but they lacked the speed and precision Alex had trained for. Vrak swung his fist toward Alex's head, a punch that would have knocked most opponents out in an instant. But Alex ducked just in time, the air rushing past his face as the punch missed by inches. The crowd gasped in surprise. Vrak had expected to land a clean hit, but the human cadet was faster than he had thought. Before Vrak could recover, Alex was already on the move. With quick feet, he darted to the side, making himself a smaller target. He was quick, too quick for Vrak to catch. The bully turned around, his face filled with frustration. He hadn't expected this. You're fast, I'll give you that, Vrak said, his voice dripping with annoyance. But speed alone won't save you. The Telgarian warrior swung again, this time aiming for Alex's legs, trying to trip him up. But Alex saw it coming. With one swift move, he jumped over the low swing, landing lightly on his feet behind Vrak. The crowd was in awe. The human cadet was making Vrak look slow and clumsy. Is that all you've got? Alex called out, his voice steady. He was taunting Vrak now, testing the alien's patience. Vrak growled and turned to face him, his eyes burning with rage. You'll regret that, Vrak spat, and this time, he didn't hold back. He launched himself at Alex with a brutal charge, his fists flying like hammers. Alex knew this would be his toughest challenge yet. He could feel the force behind each punch, and if one landed, it would hurt. But Alex didn't flinch. He stayed calm, his mind calculating every move. As Vrak threw a powerful right hook, Alex ducked under it, his body moving like water. With a fast spin, he planted a solid kick to the side of Vrak's knee. It wasn't a knockout blow, but it made the alien stumble. The crowd cheered, louder than before. Vrak hissed, clearly in pain now. He had never been hit like this by a human before. Alex's speed was starting to wear him down. The alien's pride, once so solid, was beginning to crack. You're not like the others, Vrak growled, his voice filled with disbelief. But you won't win this fight. Alex didn't respond. He didn't need to. His moves spoke for him. The longer the fight went on, the more Alex could see the signs of fatigue in Vrak. The alien was bigger, stronger, and faster than most beings Alex had faced before, but Vrak was becoming sloppy. His punches were less accurate, and his breathing was growing heavier. Alex kept up the pressure, never giving Vrak a chance to breathe. With quick footwork and precise strikes, he continued to wear the bully down. Alex was in complete control now, and it was clear that Vrak was struggling to keep up. Vrak swung another punch, but Alex was already gone, dodging to the left and then right back into the fight. He moved like a shadow, always one step ahead of the alien. With a sharp jab to the ribs, Alex made Vrak flinch. The alien growled, his confidence slipping further. The audience, who had been silent with nervousness just moments ago, now started to whisper in astonishment. The human cadet was not only surviving the fight, but he was slowly winning it. Alex's strategy was simple: tire out the enemy, then strike when the time was right. And right now, the time was getting closer. Vrak's movements were slowing, and Alex could feel it. The bully's punches weren't coming as fast or as hard. The crowd could see the change too. The human had turned the fight around. The Xelgarian warrior was no longer the clear favorite. Alex's eyes focused on his opponent. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like Alex might actually win. The arena was filled with the sound of pounding feet as Vrak and Alex circled each other. The fight had taken a turn. The crowd, once silent and tense, now murmured among themselves. They were starting to see something incredible unfold in front of them. Alex, the human cadet, was holding his own against Vrak, the Xelgarian giant. Vrak's anger was building. He was not used to being outpaced, especially by a human. The alien warrior was a veteran of hundreds of battles across the galaxy, known for his power, speed, and ability to crush enemies in seconds. But here, against Alex, he was struggling. His moves were growing heavier, slower. His breath came in ragged gasps. Alex, on the other hand, was as calm as ever. His focus never wavered. Every time Vrak threw a punch, Alex was one step ahead, dodging and weaving with a precision that surprised everyone. Vrak roared in frustration, slamming his fist down toward Alex's head. But again, Alex ducked just in time. The punch hit the ground with a deafening crash, sending a shockwave through the arena. The ground shook, but Alex stayed light on his feet, bouncing back and ready for the next move. "Is that the best you've got, Vrak?" Alex called out, his voice steady, though his heart raced. He wasn't just fighting for himself now. He was fighting for every human who had ever been underestimated by aliens. The crowd went silent. It wasn't just the words, it was the tone, the confidence. Alex wasn't scared. He wasn't even breaking a sweat. Vrak's face twisted in anger. The insults from the human were beginning to get to him. "I will make you regret that, human," he shouted, his voice full of fury. He charged again, his fists moving like blurs. But this time, something changed. Vrak's anger made him reckless. His wild swings missed by inches as Alex ducked, dodged, and sidestepped. The alien was clearly getting frustrated. His arrogance was no longer a shield, and his pride was beginning to crack. Vrak's next punch was more desperate. He swung wildly, aiming to knock Alex out with a single blow. But Alex saw the opening. In an instant, Alex moved in, faster than Vrak could react. He spun around Vrak's back, getting behind the massive alien warrior. With one swift motion, Alex planted a solid kick to Vrak's exposed side. The impact was sharp, like a lightning strike. The entire arena fell into stunned silence. Vrak gasped, his body jerking to the side as the force of the kick knocked the wind out of him. He stumbled, his huge frame teetering dangerously. The crowd was speechless. They had never seen anything like this before. The mighty Xelgarian warrior, known for his strength and ruthless combat skills, was actually shaken. And it wasn't just the kick, it was the sheer audacity of it. A human, a cadet, had just landed a blow that had made the great Vrak lose his balance. Vrak stood still for a moment, breathing heavily. His eyes widened in disbelief as he glanced down at the human who had dared to challenge him. The pain in his side was sharp, and for the first time in this fight, he felt vulnerable. The bully had become the one who was being bullied. Alex didn't wait for Vrak to recover. He knew this was his moment. With the alien off balance, Alex took a few steps back, quickly sizing up his opponent. Vrak's movements were sluggish now, his pride and confidence slipping away. The alien was no longer the predator, he was the prey. You're quicker than I thought," Vrak muttered, his voice low and filled with anger. He rubbed his side, but the pain didn't stop him from trying to regain his composure. He turned to face Alex, his eyes narrowed. "You've made a mistake, human. You've angered me." Alex's eyes were steady. He could feel the energy of the crowd building around him. But he stayed focused on Vrak. The alien's strength wasn't enough to beat him. Alex had trained for this, to stay calm, to use his mind and his speed rather than brute strength. He knew that if he kept this up, Vrak would make a mistake, and when he did, Alex would be there to take advantage. Vrak charged again, this time with more force but less control. He swung his arms like a wild beast, hoping to overwhelm Alex with raw power. But Alex wasn't fooled. He dodged to the left, then to the right, making Vrak miss time after time. Each failed swing brought the alien closer to exhaustion. And then it happened. Vrak swung one final time, his fist coming in from an angle that left him completely open. Alex saw the weakness and moved in, with perfect timing. Alex grabbed Vrak's arm, using the alien's momentum to twist him off balance. Alex slammed Vrak onto the ground, a move so fast and precise that the crowd gasped in awe. Vrak lay on his back, his chest heaving with effort. He stared up at Alex, his eyes wide with shock. The pain was sharp, but the shock of what had just happened was even worse. The mighty Vrak, the bully who had mocked humans and boasted of his unbeatable strength, was lying on the ground, defeated by a human. The silence in the arena was deafening. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. But one thing was clear. The fight had taken a turn, and for the first time, Vrak realized that he was no longer the one in control. The human cadet had just delivered the first shock, and the entire galaxy would now know that Alex and humans were forces to be reckoned with. The arena was now completely silent. For the first time in the fight, Alex stood tall, his breathing steady, while Vrak, the giant Silgarian warrior, lay on the ground, struggling to get back to his feet. Vrak's face was twisted in pain and disbelief. He had been humiliated, and his pride was shattered. This was not supposed to happen. He was the one who was supposed to be in control. He had always crushed his opponents with ease. Until now. Vrak pushed himself up, his massive muscles trembling from the effort. His body was covered in sweat, his chest heaving as he struggled to regain his strength. He looked at Alex, his eyes full of anger and confusion. He had underestimated the human, but now the fight was personal. No longer was this a simple challenge. This was a battle for his honor, and Vrak wasn't about to back down. "You've made a huge mistake, human," Vrak growled through gritted teeth. "No one defeats me. No one." His voice was low and dangerous, but there was a hint of uncertainty. His body wasn't moving the way it used to. He wasn't as fast, and the pain in his side from Alex's kick was still sharp. Alex didn't respond. He didn't need to. He was already in position, his feet light on the ground, his body poised for the next move. He had been training for years, and his mind was calm. The more Vrak made mistakes, the more Alex could take advantage of them. He wasn't fighting just for himself anymore. He was fighting to show the entire galaxy that humans were capable of great things. The crowd, which had been silent ever since Alex had taken control of the fight, was beginning to stir. They couldn't believe their eyes. The mighty Vrak, the one who had mocked humans and defeated countless opponents, was now struggling to keep up with a human cadet. There were whispers in the crowd, questions, doubt, and even a few gasps of surprise. No one had expected this. Vrak's eyes narrowed as he charged at Alex once more, his massive fists swinging in wide arcs. He was furious now, determined to crush this human and prove he was still the strongest. But in his rage, he had made a critical mistake. He was no longer thinking clearly. His moves were wild, reckless, and full of anger. Alex saw the mistake instantly. Vrak was too focused on winning his pride back to care about technique. He was leaving himself wide open, making himself an easy target. Alex's body moved like a well-oiled machine. He dodged to the left, barely avoiding a punch that would have sent him flying if it had connected. He was fast, faster than Vrak had expected. Before Vrak could react, Alex was already in motion. With a quick step, he moved behind the alien, just out of reach of his wild punches. Vrak was too slow to turn around, and that was when Alex struck. He delivered a sharp knee to Vrak's back, sending the Tsilgarian staggering forward. The alien roared in frustration, but the blow had taken more out of him than he realized. "You really think you can beat me?" Vrak sneered, his voice filled with disbelief. He turned quickly, desperate to land a blow, but it was too late. Alex was already in control. Alex didn't waste any time. With a swift move, he swept Vrak's legs out from under him, sending the larger alien crashing to the ground with a loud thud. The arena erupted in a mixture of shock and awe. Vrak, the unbeatable warrior, was on the ground again. His face was now full of anger, but also something deeper: fear. Vrak pushed himself up once more, his fists clenched in fury. This time, however, his body was slower, his movements sluggish. The damage from Alex's strikes was taking its toll. Vrak was no longer the unstoppable force he had once been. The human cadet had turned the tide of the battle, and Vrak's pride and arrogance had become his biggest weaknesses. "You're weak, Vrak," Alex said, his voice calm but full of certainty. "You've relied on your strength for so long that you've forgotten what it takes to actually fight. It's not just about power. It's about control, technique, and timing. You've lost all of that." Vrak's eyes flashed with fury, but he couldn't deny the truth of Alex's words. He had been too reckless. His pride had clouded his judgment. The fight had started with him thinking it would be an easy win, but now he was the one on the defensive. His body ached, his energy was running low, and Alex was still as focused as ever. The bully's mistake was clear now. In his overconfidence, he had ignored the one thing that could defeat him: the skill of his opponent. Alex wasn't just surviving. He was thriving, using Vrak's mistakes against him. Vrak let out a roar of frustration and charged again, but Alex was already moving. He had learned everything he needed to know about his opponent. Vrak's power was impressive, but it was no match for the precision and speed Alex had mastered. With one final, quick strike, Alex dodged and landed a punch to Vrak's chest. The alien staggered back, his eyes wide in shock. It was over. The mighty Vrak, the bully who had mocked humanity, was finally defeated. Alex stood tall, his breath steady and controlled, while Vrak lay on the ground, exhausted, humiliated, and defeated. The fight had been a test, and Alex had passed with flying colors. The crowd erupted into applause, cheers echoing through the arena. They had just witnessed something incredible. The bully had made his mistake, and the human had proven that strength alone was never enough to win a fight. The crowd in the arena was on the edge of their seats, watching in stunned silence as Vrak, the mighty Tsilgarian warrior, struggled to regain his footing. The great bully, who had been so sure of his strength, was now finding himself beaten by a mere human cadet. Alex, though still calm, could feel the weight of the moment. He was winning, but he knew this fight wasn't over yet. Vrak's anger was boiling over. His face was flushed with rage, his muscles trembling with frustration. He had been humiliated, And now, more than anything, he wanted revenge. This human, this cadet, had dared to show him up. Vrak could no longer think straight. All he could think about was making Alex pay. Enough of this, Vrak roared, his voice like thunder. I've had enough. His fists clenched tighter, his body tensing like a spring ready to snap. He was no longer the controlled fighter he had been at the start of the match. His pride had taken a serious hit, and now it was his anger leading his every move. Alex knew that Vrak was dangerous when he was in rage. He had to stay focused. He couldn't let his guard down. Vrak might be making mistakes now, but one wrong move could change everything. Alex knew he had to finish this fight before Vrak found a way to strike back. Vrak charged again, faster this time, his body moving like a battering ram. His eyes were wild with fury, his mind clouded by the need to get back at the human who had embarrassed him. Alex could see it. The alien was going to make a desperate move, and it was coming fast. Without hesitation, Vrak lunged, swinging both fists toward Alex with all his might. The sheer force behind the attack was enough to shake the arena. Alex knew he couldn't dodge it forever. He had to think quickly. In a split second, Alex did the only thing he could. He dropped low, barely avoiding the incoming punches. With incredible speed, he slid between Vrak's legs, landing behind the giant warrior. The crowd gasped in shock. They had never seen anyone move like that. Alex had anticipated Vrak's desperate charge, and now he had put himself in the perfect position. He wasted no time. In one swift motion, he kicked at Vrak's feet, knocking the alien's legs out from under him. Vrak stumbled, his huge frame crashing to the ground with a thunderous impact. The arena shook as the alien warrior hit the floor. Vrak groaned, struggling to get back up, but the damage had been done. His body was weak, his energy nearly drained. The force of his failed charge had left him vulnerable. The crowd fell silent, waiting to see what would happen next. Alex stood back, watching Vrak with careful eyes. The alien wasn't out of the fight yet. He could still get back up. Alex couldn't afford to underestimate him now. He had to finish what he had started. This battle had gone on long enough. Vrak's chest heaved as he pushed himself to his knees. His body was covered in sweat, his breathing erratic. He had never been in a fight like this before. He had always relied on his strength to win. But now, his strength was failing him. He looked up at Alex, his eyes burning with fury. This isn't over, human," Vrak growled, his voice thick with rage. "You think you can defeat me? You think you've won?" Alex didn't answer. He wasn't interested in talking. His focus was sharp, his mind clear. He could see Vrak's weakness. The Xelgarian's anger was making him reckless, and Alex knew that if he kept pressing, he could end this. But just as Alex prepared to move in for the final strike, something unexpected happened. Vrak's eyes shifted. For a moment, his anger seemed to fade, replaced by something else, something darker. It was the look of a fighter who had been pushed to the brink, someone who knew they were about to lose everything. Then, with a surprising burst of energy, Vrak stood up. His body shook, his fists clenched, but this time, there was something different about the way he moved. His anger was no longer just a weakness. It was his strength. He wasn't going to let Alex humiliate him any longer. "You've made your point, human," Vrak said, his voice low and dangerous. "But this fight isn't over yet." The moment of hesitation caught Alex off guard. He didn't expect Vrak to rally like this. The bully had learned from his mistakes. He was adapting, changing his approach. Alex knew that this was the turning point. Vrak wasn't going to make the same mistakes again. And neither could Alex. In that instant, the atmosphere in the arena shifted. The tension was palpable. The crowd, which had been on Alex's side, now realized that Vrak was still a dangerous opponent. Alex's victory wasn't guaranteed. The alien had shown that he still had fight left in him. The fight had reached a new level. The next move would decide everything. Alex's mind raced. He had to stay calm. He had to stay focused. Vrak had made mistakes, but now he was determined to fight with everything he had. Alex couldn't afford to get caught up in the alien's anger. He had to outthink Vrak once again. Vrak wasn't done, and neither was Alex. The tension in the arena was thick. The crowd held its breath as Alex and Vrak stood facing each other, both waiting for the other to make the next move. Vrak had been pushed to his limits, but he was still standing, still ready to fight. The mighty Salgarian warrior's body was bruised and battered, yet his eyes burned with determination. This wasn't just about victory anymore. This was about survival. He wasn't going to let a human beat him. Alex, on the other hand, was focused. His body was tired, his muscles aching, but his mind was as sharp as ever. He knew this was the final round. He had outsmarted Vrak at every turn, but now he needed to finish what he had started. The fight had pushed him to the edge, but Alex wasn't going to back down. He couldn't. The arena was silent, waiting. Every move, every breath seemed amplified. The crowd knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. Two fighters locked in a battle of wills, and the winner would walk away as a legend. Vrak let out a low growl, his fists clenched tightly. He charged forward, his massive form moving like a storm. Alex didn't flinch. He had seen this move before. The key was not to react too early. If he did, Vrak's raw power would overpower him. He had to wait for the right moment. Vrak swung his fists wildly, trying to land a blow on Alex. The speed of his attack was impressive, but Alex was quicker. He ducked under the first punch, then sidestepped to avoid the second. The alien's attacks were becoming more and more desperate, and Alex could feel the tide of the fight turning in his favor. Vrak's movements were sluggish now. His anger had worn him out, and his earlier mistakes were starting to catch up with him. Alex saw his opening. With lightning speed, he darted forward, his foot connecting with Vrak's side. The blow was quick, but it was enough to throw the alien off balance. Vrak stumbled, crashing to the ground once more. The crowd erupted into gasps of surprise. Vrak, the unbeatable warrior, was on the ground again. His face twisted in fury as he struggled to push himself up, but the fight was clearly taking its toll. His strength was fading, his breath shallow. He was no longer the unstoppable force he had once been. Alex had proven that. Vrak's eyes shot daggers at Alex, his face flushed with humiliation and rage. He had underestimated the human, and now he was paying the price. The alien's pride had been shattered, and now there was nothing left to hide behind. Alex had taken everything from him. "I won't lose to you, human." Vrak roared, his voice hoarse with anger. He got to his feet once again, but his body was shaking, his legs weak. The energy he had once had was gone. His once feared strength had faded, and now he was a shadow of the warrior he had been at the start of the fight. Alex knew this was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Vrak's pride and rage had blinded him to his own weaknesses, and Alex had taken full advantage. Now, with one final move, the fight would be over. Alex's body moved into position, his stance firm. He had trained for this moment, prepared for every possible scenario. He had read Vrak's every move, every shift in his body language. Now it was time to strike. Vrak tried to charge again, but Alex was already 2 steps ahead. With a quick, fluid motion, he dodged Vrak's attack and launched himself into the air. He used his momentum to spin around, landing behind the alien warrior. Vrak's eyes widened with disbelief as he turned to face Alex, but it was too late. Alex was already in motion. His leg shot out, connecting with the back of Vrak's knee. The alien's leg buckled, and with a loud crash, Vrak fell to the ground once more. The impact was enough to knock the wind out of him. He gasped for breath, unable to move. The crowd was silent once again. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Vrak lay on the ground, unable to rise. His body was spent, his strength gone. Alex stood over him, breathing deeply, his chest rising and falling. He had done it. Vrak's pride, his rage, and his strength had all led him to this moment. Defeat. He had underestimated his opponent, thinking that raw power alone would win the fight. But Alex had shown him the truth. It wasn't about strength. It was about skill, timing, and heart. And Alex had all of that in abundance. Vrak lay there, gasping for air, too weak to move. His eyes met Alex's, and for the first time in the fight, there was no anger in them, just defeat. He knew he had lost. Alex stood tall, his posture relaxed, but his eyes full of confidence. He had faced the bully, the giant, and come out victorious. The human cadet had proven that, in the end, it wasn't size or strength that mattered. It was the will to fight, the courage to stand tall, and the determination to never give up. With one final controlled breath, Alex raised his hand in the air, signaling his victory. The crowd exploded into cheers, their voices shaking the arena. Alex had not just defeated Vrak. He had done something even more important. He had proven that a human could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest warriors of the galaxy and come out on top. The fight was over, and the human had won. The silence in the arena was deafening. The cheers had faded, leaving only the soft hum of the distant lights. Alex stood tall, his chest still rising and falling from the intensity of the battle. In front of him lay Vrak, the mighty Xelgarian warrior, defeated and broken. The once proud bully now lay on the ground, struggling to breathe. His body was battered, bruised, and covered in sweat. He had fought with everything he had, but it wasn't enough. He had been humbled. For a long moment, neither Alex nor Vrak moved. The crowd had fallen silent, unsure of what to do. They had witnessed a battle like no other. They had watched as a human cadet took down one of the galaxy's greatest warriors. The fight was over, but there was still a heavy weight in the air. What would happen next? Vrak's eyes flickered, slowly focusing on Alex. His pride, once unshakable, had crumbled. He had always believed that strength alone could win any battle. He had always believed that his alien abilities, his size, and his power made him invincible. But now, lying on the ground, it was clear. He was just like any other fighter. He had weaknesses, he had limits, and Alex had shown him that. Vrak's breathing was labored. His voice, when he finally spoke, was hoarse, barely a whisper. You beat me," he said, his words filled with disbelief. "How? I thought you were nothing more than a weak human." Alex didn't answer right away. He simply watched Vrak, his face calm. He had earned this victory, but he didn't need to gloat. He didn't need to rub it in. The fight was over, and the lesson had been learned, not just by Vrak, but by everyone watching. "You underestimated me," Alex finally said, his voice steady. "You thought that because I'm human, I couldn't win. You thought you could overpower me with your strength, but you were wrong. You were so focused on beating me with power, you didn't see the bigger picture." Vrak's eyes narrowed, but there was no anger in them now, just a deep sense of shame. "I was wrong," he admitted, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. "I was blinded by my pride. I thought being bigger, stronger, meant everything. But now I see. I was a fool." The crowd, who had been watching in stunned silence, began to murmur. It was rare to see an alien warrior admit defeat so humbly, but there was no mistaking it. Vrak, the bully who had laughed at Alex, was humbled. The arrogance that had once filled his every step was gone. Alex didn't say anything else. He simply watched as Vrak struggled to sit up. The Xelgarian was clearly exhausted, his body heavy with the weight of his defeat. There was no rage in his movements now, no desire for revenge. Just resignation. He had learned a lesson the hard way. And Alex had learned something too. He had always known that strength wasn't everything. He had learned it growing up, training every day, pushing his limits, learning how to think ahead, and stay calm in the face of danger. But today in this arena, he had seen firsthand how easy it was for even the strongest to fall. He had faced a bully who had thought he could win with nothing but brute force. But in the end, it was the human cadet's mind, his strategy, that had triumphed. The battle was over, but there was no sense of victory in Alex's heart. He hadn't come here to humiliate Vrak. He hadn't come here to prove that humans were better. He had come to show that no matter how big or strong someone was, they could still be defeated. Even the strongest had weaknesses, and it was through understanding those weaknesses that one could truly win. Vrak finally managed to push himself to his feet, his body unsteady. He looked at Alex, and this time, his gaze was not one of anger or pride. It was something else, something that Alex hadn't expected. Respect. "You've shown me something I didn't know before," Vrak said, his voice low but steady. "I have always believed that strength alone is the key to victory, but now I see that there is more to fighting than power. You showed me that. You showed me humility." Alex nodded, accepting the words. He didn't need Vrak's respect, but it felt good to know that the Selgarian had learned something. It felt good to know that Alex had made a difference, not just for himself, but for someone else too. Vrak slowly bowed his head. "Thank you," he said. "I will never make the same mistake again." With that, Vrak turned and walked away, his steps slow but steady. The crowd watched him leave, a mixture of awe and disbelief on their faces. Vrak had been the bully, the one everyone had feared. But now, he was nothing more than a man who had learned his lesson. Alex stood there for a moment, watching Vrak disappear into the distance. He had won the fight, but more importantly, he had won something that was far more valuable, a lesson in humility. As the arena lights dimmed and the crowd began to disperse, Alex knew that this victory would stay with him forever. Not because of the fight he had won, but because of the lesson he had taught, and the one he had learned.